Welcome back to The Other 51, the podcast for writers by writers, where I get all of your favorite writers and my favorite writers to spill their secrets and talk about how they write the cool stuff that they write. My name is Brian Moritz. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcasts. And this week, I am delighted to have one of my favorite writers back, a frequent guest on the show, author of the new novel that is out this week, Lloyd McNeil's Last Ride, Will Leitch. Welcome back to the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I like the tradition. I think I've come on a couple of times for each one of these books now. So you'll know, hopefully if they ever not stop letting me do these, hopefully we'll still come on and I'll talk about the books I would have written if you allowed me to do so.
It is a good rhythm. You got going and we got going here. Every 2 years, you got a great new book. We get to talk about it. It's great. And so Lloyd McNeil, it is out this week. Lloyd McNeil's Last Ride. And we were just talking before we started recording here, but it is such a great book. I loved reading it so much. It was funny. It was fun. You know, I'm not giving away many secrets here, but the main character has a 13-year-old son. I have a 14-year-old daughter. So that teenager relationship that we were also talking about beforehand, just you really nailed it. I feel like the dad teenager relationship that was probably my favorite part of this whole book.
Well, thank you. It is the central organizing principle of my life, not just a 13-year-old, but an 11-year-old that's about to be a teenager. They're just about to be, this is it, right? You know, we have reached the point, you know, I love to quote one of my famously one of the most beloved fathers, Anthony Weiner. But there's a great piece by my old Bloomberg politics colleague, Josh Tyrangle in The Atlantic this week, where he's talking about, because Weiner's trying to run for public office right now, run for city council. And Josh asked him, so like, why now? Why can you do this? He's like, honestly, I was really concentrating on being a dad, but my kid has reached the don't give a shit about me stage anymore. And so I had to do something with my time. Now, I would hope that this is a more productive use of my free time than maybe Anthony Weiner always made of his free time. But nevertheless, we've definitely reached my kids think I'm even lamer. I know my kids are being mean because they think I'm even lamer than I think I am. And so that is a very strange place to be. That's a very strange place because I'm kind of the champ of that. So it's very weird to see them outpacing me.
I got the comment, oh, we're wearing Costco clothes now, are we? And I'm like, yes, we are.
Unk. That's the phrase they're using now.
Unk. Yeah.
Unk, yes. And they're like, oh, that's I'm a black t-shirt guy because I'm a what do you want from me? I'm a middle-aged white guy. We wear black t-shirts. And I've been doing that since I was 24. And it was very and I went to go see Wilco. Like, I guess I'm bringing this on myself. By doing this, so I'll accept it.
You got to lean into the skid at some point, right? Yeah. So the premise of the book, I want to start there because it's such a cool premise, and the premise doesn't give really anything away. We might have some light spoilers, so if you haven't read the book and don't want anything spoiled, you read it then come back. But I was wondering if you could kind of tell us what the premise of the book, like set up the story for us.
Yeah, so it tells the story of Lloyd McNeil. He is in his mid-40s. He's a police officer in Atlanta. He's the son of the former police chief, who's somewhat of a polarizing, even somewhat controversial figure. But he's divorced. He has a 13-year-old son, and he lives a pretty quiet life. He's a very kind of mild-mannered cop, kind of an affable sort of guy in contrast to his father. And as the book opens, we literally see him in real time getting the diagnosis that he has glioblastoma, which is, for those who have dealt with it, we've certainly dealt with it in my family, is basically a brain tumor that will kill you in the span of like 3 months. And so he's kind of he's kind of dealing with that. The book is told in real time, present tense, so you're really kind of, it's actually happening while you're there. And he kind of starts to think about it, and he realizes, he tries to figure out, get his finances in order and what he can, like, start to figure out what he's got. And he just kind of discovers, according to his pension plan, that if he dies in the line of duty, his son will get roughly 50 to 75 times more money than if he just dies of his brain tumor. And so he is very eager to do something lasting for his son. He feels kind of guilty that he's not been able to set him up better. And so he decides he's going to get himself killed in the line of duty. He's going to throw himself into a series of increasingly insane situations and to try to get himself killed. The book does not stop immediately when he gets killed on his first try. I'll put it that way. And so, hopefully, it is. Obviously, it's about someone dying of a brain tumor. So, and it's about a parent, kind of leaving lasting lessons. One of the things that Lloyd does throughout the books. He writes a series of things called the 10 Gentle Edicts of Lloyd McNeil, where he writes lesson. He realizes like because he can't tell his son, right? Because he can't tell his son because he can't have anybody, no one other than the doctor that they diagnose him can even know about this. So he leaves these things to be for his son to discover. After he's gone, like these lessons that he's not going to be able to give him. Some of them are basic, like don't shave against the grain, and here's how to drive a stick shift. But a lot of them are like life lessons and things he wants them to know. And one of the general ideas behind the book, I knew it was a juicy premise, but the thing I liked about it was it allowed me to get a lot of things. I think a lot of anxieties and fears that people have right now, particularly parents. The idea of what kind of world are we leaving to our children? Are they going to have a place? Are they even going to be able to live on this planet in 70 years? The idea of I find myself as I kind of look around the world. I have friends of mine that don't have kids, and more power to them. They live in everyone makes their own decisions in their lives. So I think everyone's doing great. But I find among a lot of them, there's a certain nihilism about the state of matters of the world, where it's just like, yeah, yep, of course, it sucks again. Another terrible thing, more fresh hell from my phone. And I find myself thinking, I get it. There's a whole bunch of terrible shit going on all the time, but I kind of have to be a part of trying to fix it because they're going to be here. Like if it were just me, I'd be like, yeah, I used to smoke. I probably only got like 20 years left. I'll ride it out, right? I'll be like Lily Tomlin and Tom Waits at the end of Shortcuts, where you just ride out the earthquake and it's over and you have a cocktail and you're done. The world's more. I need my kids. I need the world to be okay for my kids. I need them to be able to navigate what sure looks like it's going to be a pretty scary, difficult time for them. And so, the idea of a parent who realizes he has very short amount of time to provide for his kid and to help his kid for an extremely uncertain future. It seemed like something that could work very well with that premise, and so and also because it's such a dark premise, I definitely tried to make it funny. I thought that was pretty important it's definitely the most heartwarming, hopefully amusing book you'll ever find about someone quickly dying of a brain tumor. So, which is maybe not the best sell, but I think hopefully people will find it more affirming than depressing.
So a lot to get to out of the book. But one thing I wanted to start with was that premise. Like, I'm wondering the process of starting this book. How did you start? Did you start with that premise of brain tumor killed in the line of duty? Did that come to you, or how did this whole the book, the story? How did you start, and how did you start developing it from the first idea?
I had a few ideas. When we did it, after How Lucky, we signed a 2-book deal with Harper, and I'd done The Time Has Come, and I'm very happy with The Time Has Come. The Time Has Come was more difficult to describe to people, and the book did well. The book did fine, but I think it didn't grow off of How Lucky, and you want it to kind of grow. And one of the consistent things we kind of heard was it's just hard to explain. Like I love The Time Has Come, but it's a complicated book. It's the elevator pitch is not easy. So I kind of I wanted to find something that was more straightforward and easily to kind of like understand. But the initial premise of this actually, I always have a notebook of stuff, of different ideas. The next one I'm still debating with my agent and editor of what we're going to do, but it's among several ideas that we all have. And one of the things is, that my right before COVID, in like February 2020, where I think I was listening to the Daily about like that doctor in China that died. And I was like, oh, what if that's gonna be a thing? That'll be fine. And I was home, and the people that bought our house I grew up in, which is right next door to the house. My dad built a house right next door to the house I grew up in. So when my parents used to live after that. My mother was very close to the woman that had bought the house, and she was dying of glioblastoma. And so my mom wanted me. I was home talking to the University of Illinois, so I went home to see her. And I had not seen her in like 15 years. I knew her, we were friendly, but I had not seen her in a very long time. And she was in the had glioblastoma. It was a very difficult time for her. So I went to go see her, And I did not think she would even remember me. And I walked in and she said, "Oh my God, Will!" And then and just like jumped up and but I saw like her head was shaved. She was very much in the last stages of this. And I kind of sat with her for like a couple hours, and and my uncle also died of glioblastoma. So the idea of learning that you're dying very soon, and not just that, but also there's going to be cognitive issues in a short amount of time. The idea of putting a clock, one thing that kind of all my books have, accidentally or not, they all have clocks. They all have at the very beginning. You see someone in a situation and they have only a certain amount of time until the clock runs out on whatever thing that they are currently facing. And so I like that idea of capture of from a father's perspective, from a parent's perspective, what you do with that time, and ultimately the idea of capturing that again, that kind of existential angst I think a lot of people have, tying it into the worries of parenthood, and hopefully in a disease that I unfortunately know pretty well. Uh, it it really became kind of irresistible, but I also wanted it to be like one thing I like about the book. There's action scenes. Like I kind of it's kind of fun to write. The book is I'm sure we'll get into this, but it was optioned for a movie, and one of the things that people that were like bidding on it kept asking me is like, did you imagine this as a movie? Did you feel like that's a movie? And obviously, I do a movie podcast. I watch a lot of movies. This is why I can't watch any television show because I'm so behind. I got to go see the Minecraft movie twice without my kids, just to be able to talk about it for the podcast and write about for Vulture. So um, I guess my mind might think in movie terms, but I certainly didn't imagine it as a movie scene. But like I've gone back and read the book since all the movie interest. I'm like, oh, I guess this kind of does run like there are action scenes. I interviewed Chuck Palahniuk one time, and he said that in his books, he always felt like his job was to keep you from looking at the second screen. His job was to keep you as excited, as interested as possible to where you don't even think about picking up your phone or turning on something else until you've gotten either through that scene or or hopefully through the whole book. And I find I like the book, the first, I guess, quarter of the book is a lot of setup and you get to know Lloyd, you get to know his experience. But I did kind of like once the decision is made, once he does what he decides he's going to do, I wanted this thing to freaking floor it. Like I wanted it to feel exciting. I wanted it to feel urgent in real time. And so that was a big part of it too, is wanting the book to be like viscerally exciting in addition to all the I'm very ambitious about this book. Sometimes I'll read books and they'll be like, I don't know, I just wanted to tell a story about a girl and her flower. And that's great. And that's other like that's awesome. I love some of those books. But one of my failings or virtues, depending on your perspective as a writer, is I kind of want my books to do everything. You only get to do who knows how many of these I get to write. So I kind of want to try all of it. And so the idea of this seemed like a very sturdy premise to try to do all of it.
So I can verify that it is very exciting, especially once we get into the action sequences of the book. So kind of a double pronged question, which I always tell my students not to do, but whatever, here we are. One, how fun were those scenes to write? The actual action sequences. I'm thinking of the car one especially, but also in terms of like making the plot kind of move and kind of be propulsive. What are some of the like? How did you approach that as a writer? What were you doing? How were you approaching it to make that kind of plot fly through the final 2/3 of the book?
For me, it's music.
Okay,
Honestly, it's finding the right music. My actual go-to choice, particularly for the car scene, is the Donnas. I'm actually a big
nice,
fan of the Donnas.
very nice.
It's just very propulsive. I mean, it's also like it's propulsive, but it's not like Metallica bread fan propulsive. It's like kind of fun,
Mhm.
and it's a lively, and it's kind of goofy, and it's all. But that's kind of the tone I wanted to have. That I just wanted to feel like you are, and how lucky I wrote. There's a point where Daniel talks about how the most exciting thing that you would ever read in a book is the most terrifying thing if it ever actually happened to you.
Right.
Just basic things that happen in book or entertainment all the time. If they were to happen to you in real life, that would be all you would be able to talk about the rest of your life. You would go to therapy for it. It'd be a monstrous thing. And so every time I do like either an action scene or a very emotional scene, or like one of those scenes where a character is going to think about for the rest of their life, I try to not slow it down. It always seems very strange to me that like people don't realize rarely realize in the moment that something's happening that like, holy shit, my life's on the line, or everything counts right now, or this is something I'll remember the rest of my life. It just happens. And so I wanted to try to kind of capture that by writing it almost too fast. And that's a general philosophy for all of my life, I suppose, is just kind of I can fix it in post. We'll do it live. And at a certain level, I'd rather go for those scenes. I wanted them to feel like they're happening so fast, and there's so many things going on that that Lloyd himself is barely keeping track of what's going on, and while still making it linearly understandable to the point where it's not confusing. That was another challenge too, because Lloyd goes through some cognitive issues in this book, and you don't want to turn into like where it's Flowers for Algernon, where like there's like gibberish or so. Like clearly, he has to be able to tell the story, and so I had to pick some talk to a lot of people that have dealt with glioblastoma about some of the things that happen and some of the how it feels sometimes. So I tried to get that right, but really, I want this. The reason the book is told in the present tense in real time is I want you to feel the entire time like this is happening right now, and Lloyd is as surprised by what is happening as the reader is. And so a lot of that is music, to be entirely honest. A lot of that is music. I will just put the right few albums on that will just propulse me through. I just get writing fast. I probably over caffeinate a little bit and just try to plow through it and fly through it is the best way to put it. Not every section in the book is written that way. Obviously, there are times where the book really slows down, but for an action sequence, uh, I do like the almost the Paul Greengrass sort of quick cutting chaos, quick camera work. It's happening. It should feel like it's actually happening, and so that was something what I was trying to do with that.
I'm curious too, from a character standpoint. Obviously, Lloyd is everything in this book. What was the biggest challenge that you had in writing him as a character?
Um, Lloyd is normal. And normal is a loaded word. Normal is a loaded word. There is no such thing as actually normal. Everyone makes their own sort of normal. But Lloyd is a just a regular guy, and more to the point, sees himself as a regular guy. Lloyd does not see himself as the star of some sort of story. He does not think he is exceptional. He does not want to be exceptional. In fact, in a lot of ways, he's actually tried to choose a life that's not exceptional in response to kind of what happened with his father. He wants to be low key. He wants to be the cheerful cop that just gets cats out of trees and doesn't have to isn't and wants to be a public representative of a police force rather than some tough guy or so on. It's a very important thing for Lloyd to just be a regular guy, and I think he is more than that. The readers may think that he is more than that, but for Lloyd, it's very, very important that he be like to himself and to his well-being and his self, the way he sees himself, that he's just a regular person. And what's fun about that, it's sometimes when I describe Lloyd to people, I worry he's coming across dull, and
No, not at all.
it's
Yeah.
definitely not dull. But Lloyd kind of sees himself as dull.
Hmm.
He sees himself as just he's self-effusing. He's the most pleasantly divorced guy ever. And he's like, yeah, she's probably happier with him. I wasn't what she needed. And there is a certain, he is self-effacing in an extreme sometimes. In fact, one of my notes I got from my editor constantly is like, hey, less nebbishy. Like less nebbishy. Still a
Yeah.
cop, still an Atlanta cop. And I think there is like there's a certain fortitude to him. But I do think that writing someone who is, I think, kind of extraordinary, but does not see himself as extraordinary at all, is a challenge, because you want to get that across to the reader in a way that doesn't make Lloyd seem like he's subtly trying to tell you that he's actually pretty cool. And
Right.
hopefully, so the challenge is to make you love Lloyd and realize that Lloyd's extraordinary without Lloyd you realize that before Lloyd does.
Hmm.
And so that was a challenge with him. The thing that helps is there's people in his life. I love one of the things that I think this shares with the last two books is the supporting characters are I think are as much fun to write as anybody else, and they have their own flaws and their own things, but they love Lloyd. They love him, and even if he and they worry about him and they fear for him even before he before all of this happens. And so that helps sometimes is to have his goodness reflected through other people. But yeah, that was a challenge is to do someone that is steadfast, right from someone's perspective that steadfastly considers themselves unextraordinary, but to make the reader know they're extraordinary.
So one thing I'd love your thoughts on this too, as I was reading it, that struck out to me, reading Lloyd is like, is the balance that you strike within as he's starting to do this and putting himself in these dangerous situations and kind of keeping Lloyd likable as he goes down this scheme of not just, trying to die in the line of duty and do this, but, the relationships he's got to keep up. Small spoiler here, but he can't tell anybody about this. So he
Right.
can't tell his son, he can't tell his ex-wife, he can't tell his partner, he can't tell anybody on it. And you can kind of see, like I was fascinated. I love your thoughts on this, on keeping Lloyd as likable, even as it's kind of, does it make sense? Like kind of teetering down this path of, oh, buddy, what are you doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, Lloyd certainly doesn't always make the best decisions, but I think he makes them he makes them from his perspective one of the right reasons, and that's part of his journey in the book. I think it's also hard too. He has to go through his own thing in this that's independent of just the fact that he's dying of a brain tumor. There has to be stuff that he learns about himself and mistakes that he has made that he hopefully can find time to rectify in the process of the book. So, but yeah, also he's not always 100% the most reliable narrator. I mean, he is dying of a brain tumor. So, at a certain level, there's things that again, hopefully the reader can see that he can't see, and not just about himself, but about other things that are going on. And so, I like that he makes I it's funny. Someone asked me recently if they said, well, generally people in your books are pretty nice. And like not everyone, obviously there has to be conflict. And no one's perfect, but generally speaking, they're affable people who mean well. And on one hand, I think that the primary reason for that, frankly, is that like when you write a book, you spend a lot of time with these people, and and my dirty secret as like a human in general is that I do actually, in spite of a really increasingly high level of evidence, I still really like people, and I still feel like they are good, and I think they mean well even when they make mistakes, and perhaps especially when they make mistakes. I don't like even when there are villains in my books. They're usually deluded rather than sinister masterminds. They think they are bigger deals than they are. They think people are thinking about them more than they actually are, and they are compensating for something that they refuse to see in themselves. That is more interesting to me than super genius villain who's figured out this master plan. And and I love people because they're flawed and because they screw up a lot and because but they generally mean well. And from my experience in life, I actually do find that people mean well. When I get away from my computer and I get away and I interact with actual people out in the world, I find people mostly lovely. And I think that gets completely forgotten because we see not only do we see people see the worst people online, I actually think we see good people at their worst often, and in a way that like was why I'm very rarely on social media at all anymore because I've seen myself at my worst on there as well. And so I like I uh, I like that Lloyd screws up. And I like that he makes mistakes. And I like that he's a little blinkered and doesn't maybe see the whole picture of what maybe the right thing to do is and how this plan is, kind of insane. But you understand where he's coming from and you understand why he would think about doing it and you understand why he would go about it the way he did. So hopefully all that comes across.
So one other thing in the book too, you mentioned the gentle edicts. of Lloyd McNeil, the letters that he writes to Bishop, his son, and being a weekly avid reader of your newsletter, I notice similarities, similar themes in a lot of those, and in a lot of the book to that. So I'm curious. You've been doing I've been reading your newsletter since I think the Tiny Letter Day, so it's been a while. But how much does that weekly writing of the newsletter along? I mean, you do so much stuff, but that weekly newsletter, does that, and how much does that get into parts of the book like that, or kind of bigger parts of your books?
Yeah, it gets into everything. And the thing I love about the newsletter, it's still free. It will always be free. I'm never going to charge anybody for it because it pays for itself. Like it pays for itself, because like I get to think about like I always joke that my like literally the headlines to my newsletters are just random Wilco songs. I think I just ran out of Sopranos episodes, so I'm doing Dave Eggers books now, and I have spent too much time in the online salt mines to sully my work with a cheap headline, frankly. And I want I always joke that like I've written this about this before, but I always joke if I had my druthers, every book that I wrote would be, "Hello, my name is Will Leitch, and I wrote this book, and I hope that you like it." I hate salesmanship. I hate it. Like it feels wrong to me. This is a Gen X thing. I have no doubt. And I'm sure it's hurt me in my career in a lot of ways. And that, like, I just like the idea of picking up my phone and being like, "Hey, here's your picture." It strikes me as the most insane shit in the world. Like, this is your phone. Don't talk into your phone. There's like people out there. Go talk to them, and go talk to your kids. Go walk outside. Is very strange to me. That kind of idea, and so the newsletter for me gets to be the purest thing. I get to try stuff. I get to think about things that like I don't have to pitch anything. I don't have to be like, okay, how do we sell that? How do I sell this to my editor? Like I do that all the time. I have regular editors at that New York Magazine and the Washington Post and MLB and the New York Times. Every place I write, I have editors that I have to pitch stuff to, and I think I'm good at it. And I like pitching them things, and I like when we come together and come up with a great idea, and I like executing. I'm not against any of that, and I love it. I mean, it's how I make my career, and in a lot of ways, how I make my living. But and the same thing with the books. But for me, the newsletter is the place where I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I can just take something that is on my mind or something that I think I've heard from other people that feels like I've experienced or someone else's experience that feels like it could be a collective experience, and I can just write it and see, and I can try out different muscles. I can try out different formats. Sometimes it's like explicitly political. Sometimes it is explicitly sports. Sometimes it's so insular as to be, and it's fine because I'm not asking anybody to pay for it. You don't have to pay for it. You don't owe me anything. I don't know. I get to like for me to be. I'm a better writer by far because of that newsletter. Because I'm not trying. I'm not trying to sell you anything with it. I'm just trying to. I'm trying to become a better writer, express things in the way that I think that they should be expressed, and hopefully find a collective sort of thing. And because of that, again, I don't even do like normal headlines for it. And it makes it sometimes harder for people to find. I'm never very high on any of the Substack lists because A, it's free. So Substack's like, I mean, boy, we're not going to promote you. We're not getting any money out of this. But I don't get like that's not what it's for. If it's for it is for connection, and I think there is a community, and I think that there's I love doing it. I love connecting with people. It's one of the best parts about it. But I've taken the transactional nature that seems to drive almost everything in public life, even for writers and journalists. I've just tried to separate that entirely from the whole thing. And just I am writing this purely the way that I am seeing the world, and I'm wondering, person out there in the world that I don't know, perhaps you see the world the same way or have something to add to the conversation. The way the internet felt when I first started writing on it, in the back in the Iron Mines and the Black Table days, and that's what I didn't start writing to like go viral or to get clout or to yell things into my phone or to give gambling tips. And I'm staring perilously down the end of a current decade birthday wise, and I so I don't know how much longer I got. Like I'm pedaling in front of the Reaper. You know how this business is. I made it this far. The idea that I'm suddenly gonna switch to being like, all right, now I gotta do all my Instagram lives. I gotta give gambling tips and all like the sweaty things that everybody has to do. Uh, Knock on wood, I've been very fortunate to actually, I've gotten more opportunities by not doing that. And I'm not, there's nothing wrong with doing that. If people want to do that or if they're good at it, they should absolutely do it. But I don't want to do it and I would not be good at it. And so at a certain level, I do think part of getting older is just recognizing the things that you are good at and comfortable with and not trying to do something else. And it doesn't mean I'm not still open to ideas. I'm not trying new things. I've written before about how me and I was friends with the late Grant Wall, and we would always joke about, we once had a dinner where we talked about how I do yes and the old improv idea that anytime, because Grant famously did everything. He wrote about everything all the time, did TV, and was always saying yes and, yes and, yes and, which is kind of how I've done my career. Is just like, just try stuff. I'm always open to stuff. But the idea that like I'm going to, hey, Will, like I'm sorry, but like I see people who like were in the old blog game whose work I love, and some people whose work I didn't love, but like still like just like literally picking up their phones and being like, hey chat, hey gang, what's up? And it's just like, dude, you are in your late 40s, early 50s. Who are you trying to kid? Go like you don't we don't have that much time on this earth, man. Like do something bigger than that. It would crush my soul to kind of continue to do that. So hopefully I can continue to get away with it as long as I can before the earth crashes into the sun, I guess.
So I'll get you out of this with the question I ask everybody because reading is becoming a better writer is about becoming a better reader and reading good stuff. So, what's the best thing that you've read lately?
So I just finished Run for the Hills by my friend Kevin Wilson, which actually is out a week before my book on May 13th. So it's out. Buy my book first, but then buy Kevin. Kevin's doing fine. He's a twice Jenna Bush pick. He doesn't need my help. But Kevin is when I think of the sort of writers whose career I would love to have book-wise. Kevin to me is, Kevin writes interesting, singular books. He doesn't, these are not characters where these are not books where he's found two funny characters and they ride around in a van solving mysteries. Like he has an original book every time that is soulful and funny. And to me, Kevin is just the absolute best guy working right now. So that is wonderful. But listen, for the record, even if I sold a billion copies of all of these books, I'm still going to keep writing about sports. Like for me, this is fun. This is I know that particularly in the way that media careers work now, you're kind of not supposed to do a bunch of different things. You're supposed to like pick your lane and do that thing and hit it relentlessly and flog it as best you can. And my favorite, I loved Roger Ebert's travel writing. I loved Roger Angel on baseball and aging. I love people who write about all sorts of different things, and sometimes that can hurt branding wise. But I don't think writing novels and writing sports stuff for New York and Washington Post and MLB, that I love to do that, and I will do that no matter how many books I sell. Hopefully it will sell. Hopefully that will sell a lot because I just want to keep making. I love to do one of these every 2 years until the Earth crashes into the sun, which could be in a couple of weeks.
Who knows? So, really quick, I'll throw a recommendation out there. We were talking before we recorded. Just before I read your book, and I do love your book, but it feels very disingenuous to say that your book is the best book that I've read lately when I'm talking to you. It's really
That's
good, but it
that's
feels
okay.
very, yeah,
Feel free
yeah.
to go ahead and say it anyway. It's fine. I'm not offended.
Oh, it is the best thing I've read lately. But also, Chernobyl by Adam Higginbotham, and we were talking about his Challenger book before, and it's
Great.
great books, deeply reported, and oddly. And given the state of the world, it's oddly comforting to read about past disasters and things going wrong, just as not to diminish what's going on now, but just as things have always been messed up and there have always been things that have really been going wrong. And okay, there's a little bit of grounding in that as bad as things are now, and and we are about to crash into the sun, but the past it was not oh my gosh, the past was great, now this is all terrible. Like there's always been terrible
It's
stuff.
funny reading Challenger. I had that thought, but then I was realizing that like all the mistakes they made they were still so much more thoughtful than the people that
So
are
much
doing
more thoughtful. Oh my God.
like they made mistakes, but they were big mistakes, and sometimes they were personal mistakes and mistakes they should have seen coming. But they were thoughtful about it, and they did have degrees, and they were trying. I think that's what I find almost most worrisome about that book. I also read Nuclear War, which is a book that came out last year. It's basically nuclear war, a scenario. And it just like talks to all sorts of I forgot the name of the writer, Anne something I believe is her name. But it basically has a billion scenarios of all the different things that could go wrong that could lead to a nuclear war, and each one of them are like, someone could be making a good faith effort or trying to do the right thing, and this could still happen. I was like, yeah, but what if they're not doing a good faith effort? And what if they're not trying to do the right thing? How screwed are we then? And I don't know. I guess if there are history books in 50 years, I guess we'll find out.
Right. So we'll try to help you sell some books. I'll have the link to buy your book in the show notes for this, and link to your newsletter and all the good stuff. And Will, this was awesome. Thanks again. Talk to you soon.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Other 51. Thanks to Will Leitch for being on the program this week. You can buy his new book, Lloyd McNeil's Last Ride, and all of his books, and read his newsletter at the links in our show notes. If you like the show, please leave us a good review wherever you get your podcast. It does help people find the show. Jen Moritz does our graphics. Ellie Moritz does our theme music. I'm Brian, and I'll talk to you next time.